So whenever we're graphing sine and cosine, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to find the x values of the 5 key points. All right, and the 5 key points are always going to be the same. So let's talk about this for a second. What we're going to do is we're going to take our period of our trig function. So here we're working with sine. So what we're going to do is take our period, which is 2 pi, and we're going to divide that by 4. So always divide by 4. The reason why we're doing that is because a period is how long it takes before it repeats, okay? And we're just going to chop it into 4 pieces so we can see where the graph is at those 4 different pieces, okay? So we're just arbitrarily deciding. You could always divide by 6, but who wants to graph 6 points? Let's just graph 4. And so what does that equal? Well, we need to simplify that down. It equals pi over 2. And we're going to use this number over here. So just write use this number over here. Very mathematical. Okay, and I'm just going to do a little bit of highlighting here. Divide the period by 4. We divided it by 4. And this number is what we're going to call a quarter period. How original. Okay, we took our period, we divided it by 4, and we got our quarter period, which we're going to use over here. Alright, so we're going to start with the x value where the cycle begins. So what I mean by that is our first x value is just going to be 0. We're just going to start at an input value of 0. I guess we should technically be calling x values our theta. Alright, this is the angle measure we're putting in. So first we're just going to put in 0 radians. And then we're going to add quarter periods to the value we just started with. So our second x value, or radian value, is going to be 0 plus pi over 2, which is pi over 2. Our third one is going to be x sub 2 plus pi over 2. So we're going to have pi over 2 plus pi over 2, which is 2 pi over 2, which we can simplify to just pi. So all we're doing here is we're just adding this quarter period. All right, until we're going to keep doing this until we go a full period. All right, because we want to see what the whole graph does from beginning to end of one period. So let's do another one. X sub 4 equals pi plus pi over 2. This is going to take some mental strain because we have to think of, okay, pi was 2 pi over 2 plus pi over 2 is now 3 pi over 2. And then we're going to add another quarter period. So now we have 3 pi over 2 plus pi over 2. That equals 4 pi over 2, which we can simplify to 2 pi. And voila, we've gone from beginning to end one period. We had a starting point. We added quarter periods until we got to our full period length. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense to you so far. The whole goal of that was to identify 5 x values or theta values that we can input into our function. We're basically making an XY chart. Okay, so that's our next step. We're going to find the y values of these 5 key points. So we're going to go through, I'm going to go ahead and label that step 2. So now we're going to find the y values. Here we found the x values. So we're going to go back and we are going to take our function. We're working with y equals sine of x. So our y sub 1 that goes with our x sub 1 is going to be sine of 0. And we learned how to do these quadrantal angles. Notice all of these are quadrantal angles. We learned how to do them by hand, but it's okay if you guys use a calculator to kind of cheat if you don't have them memorized, okay? Because this graph's really going to help you to memorize them. So sine of 0 is 0. And then we're just going to do the same thing. Y sub 2, we're going to do sine of our x sub 2, which was pi over 2. So sine of pi over 2, if we put that in, we get 1. Y sub 3, we're going to do sine of, and go up here, our x sub 3 was pi, plug that in, sine of pi, if you remember, is 0. We just keep going like this. If you need to slow down, maybe pause it and try to figure out the next two on your own, or just keep watching. But y sub 4, we're going to plug in our x sub 4, which was 3 pi over 2. Sine of 3 pi over 2 is negative 1. And then lastly, our last y value, sine of 2 pi, should always be the same as 0 because they're one period apart, so it'll be 0. So there's our 5 y values. So now we have 5 x values, we have 5 y values. We can create a table of values and hence create coordinates. So what I want you to do right now is go ahead and create a table of values, x, y, and then we're going to write it as a coordinate. And remember that x is just the same as theta. That's your input, and then this is your output, our ratio. But instead of writing it as something over something, we're just writing it as an answer in one number. So our x's were 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. And our y values were 0, 1, 0, negative 1, 0. So we can create the coordinates. And I know I'm going a little fast through this. Just go ahead and pause it if you need to write all this down. But this is just really clerical work. We're not really doing any math over here. We're just writing our 5 coordinates. So now the fancy part, we're going to go ahead and we're going to graph everything.